Are so glad to be back with our regular schedule of Facebook Lives on Tuesdays and Thursdays. As always, we have lots of helpful information to share with you. But before we get started, we'll just quickly introduce ourselves for those of you who aren't familiar with who we are. My name is Jessica Melnick. I am the founder of the Anti-Arthritis Method, the host of the Happy Joints Arthritis Solutions Group. I am a registered holistic nutritionist, and I help people with various forms of arthritis get back to living life the way that they choose to, not the way that they have to. And Casey, I'll pass it on to you.
Yeah, I don't even know if I remember my spiel anymore. It's been so long.
Right? It's been a while.
Bear with me, everybody. I am Casey Caphart. I'm the founder of the Feel Good Formula. I'm a functional medicine nutritionist, and I work with women with all different types of autoimmune diseases to get you back to the activities you love to do and get you from in pain and confused to energetic and healthy again. And I live in St. Petersburg, Florida. I was just about to say Illinois. It is still like ingrained in my head that I live in Illinois.
Well, it was your home for a very long time, so I can see why that would be.
Yeah,
And the sun shines most of the time in St. Petersburg, Florida.
most of the time. It's going to rain, so not right now, but it's going to be 58 degrees tonight. That is like very cold for Florida.
Yes, I was going to say that's not too bad for here, but yes, for Florida, I can see that would be chilly.
Mm-hmm.
Fall is in the air, everyone, at least if you're in North America. If you're somewhere else in the Southern Hemisphere, it's the opposite. So lucky you, just going into summer. So today we're excited to talk to you about nutrient density. So some of you might be familiar with that, what that is, and some of you may never have heard that before. But we're going to talk about what nutrient density is and why it's super, super important if you're struggling with arthritis or an autoimmune condition, and how you can go about incorporating nutrient density into your diet and your eating habits. So why don't we get started? I'm going to talk about what nutrient density is. So for those of you who have never heard of this before and who aren't really familiar with what I mean by nutrient density, and what that means, it's like the difference between foods with empty calories that don't have nutritional value. So things like alcohol or like a chocolate bar, and eating a healthy, balanced diet that is high in vitamins and minerals, which is going to support your total health. So things like broccoli or grass-fed steak. So those foods have a lot more nutrients, vitamins, minerals in them when you compare them to things like empty calories, like alcohol, soda, Snickers bars, most like crackers, things like that. So the reason we're talking about this is that you may be eating what would be considered in general a healthy diet, but it may not be very nutrient dense.
Mm-hmm.
So things like eating the same foods all the time, not varying, the vegetables that you're eating, or even your protein sources or your fat sources. Eating the same fruits, the same sometimes low quality foods. And I say this, like I always think about being on low calorie diets as often being not very nutrient dense, depending on how you're eating. So I think about diet foods like packaged snacks and things like that may be low in calories, but they're also really low in vitamins and nutrients. So there's a difference between food quality, obviously, with what we're eating. So we're going to get into a little bit more about why this is important. And maybe, Casey, I'll pass it on to you to talk a little bit about, why are we talking about this in the first place?
Yeah. One thing I wanted to add on to your your low calorie spiel was we're not saying that either high calories is nutrient dense either. There can be a product that's maybe 400 calories and it is just filled with sugar and man-made chemicals. That is not nutrient dense either. So you want the calories don't matter. Jessica and I actually really hate talking about calories because it's the quality of food that you're eating, not so much how many calories you're eating. So we want to make sure that we're getting the most nutrients, vitamins, and minerals for the food that we're eating. So you can have a 400 calorie product shoved with so many vitamins and nutrients in there, and that is nutrient dense, or you can have a 400 calorie product with just sugar and oxidized oils in it and all of the things, and that is empty calories. So we want to maximize the amount of nutrients per calories.
Yeah, thanks for putting that out, Casey. I think that's a really great comparison on, both ends, low calorie and high calorie and everything.
Yeah. And again, we're not here to talk about calories, how much you should have. We don't care. We care the quality and what kinds of foods that you're eating. So, but moving on with just why being nutrient dense or eating a nutrient dense diet is important is because we need it to thrive. We need it to heal. If you're watching this, you probably have an autoimmune disease. So we want the most bang for our buck to naturally heal without supplements, without pharmaceuticals, and other modalities. Even though we do use supplements and we do use sometimes medications, people come to us with medications, but having a nutrient dense diet really helps fuel our body's cells. So our cells, if having an autoimmune disease, are probably pretty sickly, right? They're not getting the amount of nutrition they should be. They're not getting the correct nutrition. And oftentimes we're feeding our cells inflammatory foods and oils and sugars, and all of these things make our cells weaker and weaker. And the reason I keep saying cells is because each cell has a mitochondria in it. The mitochondria is the battery for the cells. And if that cell has a very low battery, we are not going to be firing messages to other cells to thrive and to have energy and to think. So we need to fuel each trillion cell in our body with love, tender care, vitamin, nutrients, all of the things. So we want to make sure our mitochondria in there is charged up like the battery on our cell phone each night. And we do that through proper nutrition, lowering our sugar intake, our inflammatory foods in general, which you've heard us talk a lot about. And honestly, having a nutrient dense diet is like putting oil in your car. If you're a car person or just know the basic things about it, we need oil to run. If you have no oil in your car is not going to run either properly or at all. And it's also like putting water in your body. We could not function without water. Water makes everything flow easily and hydrated and move, and it's like a lubricant. If we don't have that, we can't thrive. It's the same thing with a nutrient dense diet. So it affects our organs, it affects our cells, it affects everything from repair, digestion. We can go on for hours about this, but we'll get into some of the things that having not a nutrient dense diet can, sorry, that was a weird sentence. How not having a nutrient dense diet can show up in your body, like what you'll be feeling and all of that. So Jessica, I'll hand that to you to start that.
Yeah, you bet. So one of the ways, like I had mentioned just briefly before about one of the ways that we don't get a nutrient dense diet is when we kind of get stuck eating the same things over and over again. And trust me, I know Casey and I are probably both guilty of doing this. I know I am, where you find recipes that you like that are healthy, because you might be busy with other things and you're not, there's been other priorities in your life. Maybe you get stuck making the same recipes over and over again, and you're not really varying the foods that you're eating. So the reason that this can be a problem is not only are you not getting varied nutrients, but you're also maybe developing food sensitivities. So by kind of eating the same things over and over again, our body can develop these food sensitivities, which we don't want to have when we are dealing with arthritis or autoimmune conditions, because that is one of the reasons we are dealing with the symptoms that we're dealing with. So I know Casey and I, we've talked about leaky gut a lot. If you would like more information on that, we can always send you one of our previous lives that goes into that in much more detail. But we don't want food sensitivities. We want to be able to calm those food sensitivities so that we're able to repair our gut lining and to be able to calm an overactive immune system in the case of autoimmunity, so that our symptoms can actually go away. So that's one of the things that we want to make sure that we're doing is rotating our food. So did you want to add anything to that, Casey, before I talk about some of the symptoms of a non-nutrient dense diet?
Yeah, I mean, if we're on the topic of food sensitivities, I can talk days about it because I have days of food sensitivities from my autoimmune disease. But if you want more information on food sensitivities, we've talked about this before. We have resources, but also we're happy to order you a food sensitivity test as well. So just contact Jessica or myself, and we can get that information for you too. But food sensitivities is huge in affecting the absorbability of your food, making you have a less nutrient dense diet. So again, we're trying to optimize our diets, our cells, and our absorbability.
Yeah. So what does it look like when we're not getting enough nutrients in our diet? So there's a whole list of things that it could look like and a whole list of uncomfortable symptoms that you might have. And one of the biggest ones, and I hear this all the time from my clients, is feeling sluggish, feeling tired. That is one of the cornerstones of dealing with an autoimmune condition.
Mhm.
And when we are not getting enough nutrients into our body, we're not having that energy that we need to feel good, to get through the day, to not feel like we need to have, an hour long nap at 2 or go to bed at 7. So that sluggishness and fatigue can really show up. Also, being constipated, that is another one. When we don't have enough nutrients and or fiber, water in our system, we can get constipated. And basically our whole system can just slow down when we're not
Mhm.
getting enough nutrients because our digestive system is working slower. Because like Casey was saying, if we don't feed our cells what they need and give them the energy that they need, they're not going to be firing at the speed that they normally would be. They're not going to be sending messages, and our organs are not going to be functioning optimally either. Um, Another one is just not seeing improvements in your health conditions. So maybe you are eating, on plan in one of our programs, but if you're not getting enough nutrients, you may not be seeing improvements in how you feel, or at least not as much as you would have hoped for. So that's another huge thing. So we don't want your efforts to go unrewarded, so to speak. You're putting in all this time and effort into eating properly. We want to make sure that you're getting the most out of that. I'll just say one more, Casey, and I'm going to pass it over to you to talk a little bit more. Another one is getting sick more often. So often, when we're one of those people who get sick often. I know I used to be. And when you have a compromised immune system, in the case of autoimmunity, you may get sick more often. And part of that reason is that our body is often deficient in vitamins and minerals. So for example, it's really common for people with arthritis or autoimmune conditions to be low on vitamin D3. Often being low in iron is really common as well. So, being deficient in those things, and you can go to your doctor to get tested for vitamin and mineral deficiencies. But a good sign of that is just getting sick more often than, people around you. If you're one of those people who are like, oh my goodness, like someone sneezed by me and I got sick the next day, then you might want to consider changing your diet a little bit to get more nutrients.
Yeah, definitely. Another one would be mood fluctuations, which oftentimes we don't really think about or even are aware of in ourselves, but that just means we're depressed more often or sad, maybe not clinically depressed, anxiety, panic attacks, irritable, just blah. That can also be a sign of not having a nutrient dense diet, just because, again, our cells are not firing correctly, but there's a gut to brain axis, and 90% of our serotonin is in our gut. Serotonin is the feel good formula. It's the feel good sensation that we have in our brain. Same with dopamine. So when those aren't firing, and when we don't have a healthy gut because we lack nutrient dense diets, we can get mood fluctuations, mood swings, not optimal moods in general. Brain fog, again, with our cells not talking to each other and firing the synapses, we can often not feel like we're thinking correctly, properly, fast enough, not productive. It's like there's this big cloud in your head. And I know all the people here watching with an autoimmune disease know exactly what that is and what it feels like. Again, you feel lethargic, and it's a little different than just fatigue, like we talked about before. Lethargic is just like blah and bland and sluggish. You're just like a bump on a log, basically. It's not fun. And
Slow motion, kind of.
yeah, and we need nutrient dense foods to help get us out of that and to nourish ourselves, like B vitamins. You have lower endurance for activities, so maybe you can't run as long or as fast, or you just aren't going for your walks anymore because you don't have that endurance, or you get tired more easily when playing basketball or pickleball or whatever your sport is.
And I wanted to give an example too about that, Casey, about having like the low endurance for physical.
Mhm.
Having when you have an autoimmune condition, and obviously like with arthritis, often, you know, our ability to exercise, our endurance, and our intensity level is affected because of the autoimmune condition. Of course, in time with work, you can increase that, of course. But like, think about, let's say you're eating like a chocolate bar before you go to the gym versus if you've eaten, you know, a healthy lunch that day, or and you had a healthy snack later in that afternoon. Think about the difference in quality of that workout that you're going to have. I know for me, like I tend to work out in the morning. If I eat something like, let's say it's like Friday night, and if I'm going to eat like pizza and wine, you know, for dinner, the next morning my workout is not going to be good as if
Mhm.
I was to have like steak and veggies the night before. So just being aware of those differences and how food really does fuel how we feel physically.
Yep, definitely a great example. No drive or productivity. We talked about that just a little bit. Skin disorders or not having glowing skin. So oftentimes, you just look pale. You look not totally healthy. I get complimented all the time on my skin. Oh my God, you have great skin. Your skin's glowing. And what do you do? I don't put anything on it though. It's from a really good diet and staying away from the foods that don't nourish my cells and my body. So your inner nutrition and your inner health of your cells can affect outwardly on our skin. So when you do have skin conditions, or it just looks pale, or you have dark circles around your eyes, it means that something's going wrong on the inside, and we need to kind of tweak some things and adjust. Um, and then the last one, certainly not the only one, because this list can go on forever, I'm sure, but diseases can arise. So you probably have an autoimmune disease from eating inflammatory foods and not so nutrient dense diets, high in sugars, stress, all of the things. So the less nutrient dense diet you have, the more chance that other diseases can arise, unfortunately. So this whole list is not to say that, like, how do I say it? So if you're doing all of the things and eating healthy, I would still call that a good win. Like, do not put that in the lose category. What we want to do is expand on your good diet and make it more of a variety and more fun for you and your cells internally. So we want to say, first of all, it's a win that you're already eating healthy and nourishing your body, but we can't stay in this let's eat the same thing every single day, and it just, our bodies don't work like that. We need a rotation of minerals and vitamins and all of that. And I know I didn't say that correctly, so I hope my message got through. But
Oh, that makes sense. It is. It's about having variety, and it's also about, for some of us, maybe trying some new foods that aren't part of our regular eating plan, and just, you know, maybe gradually introducing new things into our diets. So we're going to talk about having a nutrient dense diet looks like. We're going to give some examples of foods, meals, different foods that are really, really nutrient dense, that are going to nourish your cells, and they're going to make you feel good from the inside out, and give you more energy. So one of the most nutrient dense foods, and just bear with me because I know everyone's like, ugh, gross, liver. But good quality liver, right, Casey? So we're looking at like grass-fed beef liver, like pastured chicken liver. We're not talking about just, any old liver. And if the thought of learning how to cook liver in a way is like super unappealing to you, there's actually capsules of liver that you can buy, and you can just swallow them like you'd be swallowing a vitamin. So just keep that in mind if you don't want the taste of it. And I know, Casey, why don't you share one of the things that you do with liver, and where you
Yeah.
get it, and what do you do to make it easy to get those nutrients?
Yeah, so liver you have to kind of look harder for than a steak or a hamburger. But I find it at like Whole Foods, sometimes in the freezer section or in the refrigerator section next to the like red meats. And it's super cheap too and a good quality. So look for that in your grocery store or ask somebody. Also, you can ask the butcher if they have any of the organ meats left over that they can share with you. Ask the quality of it, of course. And I also know you can get it online from like co-ops and things like that. There is also so many different kinds of recipes and textures that you can follow. So if you like a puree, there's pureed liver, like what
Like
is it called? Pate. Thank you. You can also chew it like a steak. You can, the recipe I've come across and I've done a couple times is you can also chop it into very, very fine pieces, put it on a cookie sheet, and then put it in the freezer and just pop them like pills all day long. So you still get the nutrients, but you don't get that liver taste that you may not enjoy. And also, I know liver is a texture thing and a smell thing for some people, and that gets rid of that too. But the reason we want you to incorporate liver into your diet, maybe even just once a week if you can try it, or do the pills daily, is because it is the most nutrient dense food that you can have. It has so many vitamins and minerals in it for the it's best. What's the word for? You're getting the most bang for your buck. There we go. With vitamins and minerals and iron and B vitamins, all of the things that are going to make your cells just like thrive and have so much energy and glowing skin. And also, you'll be full if you actually eat the liver. Highly recommend.
Yeah. And like I had mentioned before, too, another great nutrient dense food is grass fed meat. So
Mhm.
I was very fortunate. We have a friend who has a family member that has a small hobby farm where they raise grass fed cattle. So we were able to buy a half of a cow. I know that sounds really silly, but it lasts us for like a year. Our freezer is full, and grass fed meat is more nutrient dense than conventionally farmed meat because it has a lot more omega-3 fatty acids in it, which, if you're familiar with omega-3 fatty acids, that's what we often find in fatty fish and seafood. We need that for our brain health. It helps with anxiety. It helps with just feeling good. It also helps with brain fog. It helps with also, if you have arthritis, it helps. Clinically has been proven with omega-3 fatty acids to bring down pain and inflammation in your body. So if you're dealing with joint pain, omega-3 fatty acids are really, really important. And then with grass-fed meat, you're not getting, some of the chemicals, hormones, antibiotics, and all the other things that you don't want with conventionally farmed meat. So that's super important. And also veggies, veggies, veggies. And I know maybe some of you who are like, ugh, I do not like vegetables. I would say please give them a chance. There are ways that you can prepare them. You may just have to experiment with a few different cooking techniques or having them raw with certain types of homemade dressings. there are ways that you can figure out how to eat vegetables in a way that you're actually going to like them. So you grew up eating mushy, overcooked, steamed vegetables. Trust us, you can like them. I promise.
Yeah, Jessica, one thing I wanted to say about the grass-fed meat too, which often may spark some interest with people, is it has CLA in it, which is conjugated linoleic acid. And that may mean nothing for you until I say it helps with weight loss. So if you are wanting to lose weight, if you are wanting to lose weight, conjugated linoleic acid can really help with that. And it is found in high amounts in grass-fed meat, only grass-fed. So when you stop going grass-fed, that CLA number goes way down, even to 0. So if you think you can't lose weight with eating meat, you're wrong. Clinically wrong.
Meat is a very nutrient dense food. It has a lot of bioavailable nutrients. Yeah, really, really important, especially if you're dealing with arthritis or an autoimmune condition when it comes to repairing your body.
Yes. Bone broth. So another huge nutrient dense food. Actually, I just made it last night into this morning and my house smells amazing. But huge in glycine and collagen, vitamins and minerals from reducing down that bone. It is super cheap to make too. Like you don't need to go out and buy the bones, which could get a little more expensive depending on what you're buying, if it's like pig's feet or marrow. But I just save my grass-fed bones from like my bone-in steaks or bone-in pork chops. And I let that accumulate into baggies in the freezer. And then I just make my bone broth out of that. It is the most cheapest thing that you can do. In my opinion. I add some carrots and celery to it, whatever vegetable I have in the fridge, and do that and drink it every day. And I'm not a soup person, so I'll just put, a third or a half of a mug in and drink that. And that's enough for me. And it tastes wonderful. So if you can do anything, add bone broth into your diet and liver. I'm just going to keep saying liver because
it's healthy. Yeah, so your mom was right about liver when she wanted you to eat it when you were a kid.
Liver and onions. Yes. A lot of restaurants make it really great too. Like if there is liver on the menu, I am getting it. And let me tell you, I've done it on a first date too. So there's no secrets after that. It's either you like me or you don't, and I eat liver.
Oh my God, I love that so much.
I know. But onions and leeks, as well as like cruciferous vegetables, lots of nutrients for the amount of food that you're eating as well. If you start to get into like the peas and the corn, those are less nutrient dense. It doesn't really offer a variety of nutrients like dark leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, onions, leeks, all of those things, garlic, root vegetables, lots of nutrients in there as well. It's more higher in starch, so maybe something to just limit, but very good in nutrient density. We're getting to time, so I just want to like speed this up just a little bit, but eggs would be another great thing. If you're on AIP, we tend to eliminate eggs just for a little bit because they do tend to cause food sensitivities and inflammation in some people. But if you're not sensitive at all, eggs are a great source of a lot of nutrients and can be a part of a nutrient-dense diet.
Yeah.
Spices, turmeric, ginger, garlic, black pepper even. There's a lot more spices that we're just not naming right now. Olives, great fats, great nutrients in there. And seafood with like omegas, like Jessica was saying, with anti-inflammation. But seafood like salmon and herring and sardines and mussels and oysters will pack the most nutrients for the food that you're eating. Maybe not like a tilapia or more white fish kind of don't pack all of the nutrients that we would want it to.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's of course not a completely exhaustive list, but those are some of like the basics that you obviously would have heard of, or most of you would be familiar with. So what we wanted to do to challenge you this week is, what is one thing that you can add to your diet this week to increase your nutrient intake? So from all these foods that we've just listed, what is one food that you can add into your diet that's not already in there, that you can introduce so that you can get some more nutrients in your diet? So comment below this video, let us know what you're going to try out, and let us know how it turns out. Maybe you found a recipe for it that you really, really like. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, definitely. And we will be back on Thursday talking about more mindset things, the all or nothing mindset, which Jessica and I both suffer from. So we are here to talk from experience on what we do and what we hear from our clients, and how we can kind of get out of that mindset to push us towards our goals, not further away. So let us know if you liked this video, if something stood out for you. We do have a comment saying salmon. It sounds like you eat salmon already, so that is perfect. Again, get a wild caught salmon, not a farm fresh, if you're not already doing so. All right, we will be back on Thursday. Thank you, everybody.
Take care, guys. Have a good night.